We always knew we were going to get here. The best ball striker. Brought to you by 65 Hurls. I have a stick here. If you want to get a good one to go out and do a bit of bait now, lads, this is the sort of stick. Not to mention the bit of ball striking. You can imagine me now, tasty enough with that lad, driving him over from 100 yards. Am I right?
Basically, this best ball striker conversation is the ball striker that me and you dreamed of being, but never turned into reality. This is not your agricultural ball striker like me or you or many other people. This is the cream of the crop, the lads that can make the ball talk.
Yeah.
And when you think back through the years, like, and you're thinking of DJ Carey, like that point in the 2002 All Ireland final, Lara Corbett, those goals, just the way the ball took off the hurl. Ger Farrer from Galway, Paul Flynn from Waterford, all these sort of lads where you just thought when they stood up to a ball like that anything could happen.
Like, something like this is no use to you. Maybe you could use the heel of it to kind of scratch your nose or something like that. But other than that, you're just a jersey puller. And I don't mean the kind that goes after the good hurler. I mean, all you're doing is the hurley is irrelevant to you unless you're flaking lads to give away a freeze. So a ball striker, you are not. Maybe I'm a bit of a one, but you're definitely not. Fair?
I'll take it that I'm not one, but I will definitely say that you're not one either.
Yeah, that's fair. Look, we're both cat strikers of the ball. Historically, who comes to mind when you think of brilliant ball strikers? And actually, what makes a great ball striker? I mean, what is it that makes you think, geez, he's a lovely strike of a ball?
I don't know, with some of the lads I mentioned there, the likes of DJ, and even just in relatively modern day, the likes of Cha Fitzpatrick, Shane Dowling, these sort of lads, the ball just seems to ping after hurl, and it's just like, I don't know, even like, we'll talk about now in a minute as well, the likes of David Burke even from Galway, you know that there's going to be, that when he has any sort of time to strike the ball, it's going to go exactly where he wants it to go. That would be a lot of it, I think, to be honest with you. And you know that if they get a shot at goal, or if they get any sort of a chance, their striking is so consistent, so crisp, that they're going to be up in the high 90% of where they want the ball to go. That's probably what really stands out for me. Generally, with some of the really good ball strikers as well, there's just this kind of a thud when they strike. It just sounds different than me. I don't know, when the likes of me and you and plenty of other lads hit the ball, it's just your average kind of a sound. Whereas when these lads strike it, it's like, it's like hitting a driver. It's like hitting a driver and pinging it 300 yards. There's that noise off it. You know that something special. The ball is going to go somewhere special as a result.
Yeah, like it hits it, and then it just feels like all of a sudden it just takes off after that. But like a beautiful ball striker, to me, there are some lads who can hit the ball really hard, or they're really accurate, but there's just something different about someone who has a bit of grace on the ball, the way they strike it. Obviously it's going to go where it needs to go, and with power, like Lara Corbett, he obviously hits the ball, but it takes off. He doesn't just hit the net, he absolutely ravages the net with a shot. Another guy, his Thurles compatriot, Pa Burke, I think he's different to some of the other guys we'll talk about here. He's obviously not playing inter-county anymore, but he just has a beautiful, fluid, flowing motion, especially when he's hitting frees or he's standing up and striking. Now, it's a bit longer of a strike, and maybe over the years he might have got blocked down a few times because of it. But to watch it, I could watch him strike a ball all day. Are there other lads who are coming to mind for you?
When you mentioned Pa Burke, I immediately thought of Owen Kelly from Lustman. He's currently playing with St. Gabriel's out in London. Nephew of John Try, an absolutely beautiful ball striker. I've talked about him before, I'd say, in another video. Left or right, beautiful ball striker. He's the sort of lad that if you were 100 yards away, and when you literally say he'd put it in your mouth, he literally would put it in your mouth. That's the sort of lad I'd be thinking of. And there's a few of them in every club as well. Some lads maybe who never made it to inter-county, but they can just do kind of special things with the ball.
Paul Flynn is one from Waterford, of course, and that free he scored against Cork with the dipping shot. I mean, that's even something. And a guy who's got the versatility to be able to do a top spin, bendy shot, whatever you want to do. There are some lads who are able to sort of lean back and cut across a shot. And you'd often see lads messing down at the park. They could be like 65 yards out, and they'll start the ball maybe 10 yards wide and just bend it back in, such as the way they're able to curl it.
The best ball striker is another one. I always think it's interesting as well, because the lads who aren't really good ball strikers, they're really envious of the really good ball striker, but they'll never kind of let on. They'll try and pick holes at other deficiencies in their game. Oh, he's not fast enough. he's not fit enough, he's not willing to get stuck in.
Slow and one-sided.
Yeah, kind of, yeah, to be honest with you. And but then at the end of the day, when push comes to shove and a ball needs to be put over the bar or needs to be put into the net, these are usually the lads that will win or lose you a game. And I'd often say it to young lads now, or even if we're chatting to like yourself or other lads about hurling, like you can stay hurling until you're 50 or 55 years old at any grade if you can strike a good ball, and if you can hit a free, if you can hit a line ball, if when you get the ball in your hand you're a good ball striker. Whereas if you're not a great hurler and you're relying on your fitness or something like that, your body will eventually let you down. Whereas if you have that crisp kind of ball strike, that's why I always think and maybe myself and a few other people would have concentrated maybe too much on the other things. If I could go back, I would definitely concentrate on ball skills and skills way more than maybe physical fitness, because the physical fitness can come, but if you don't have the skills, you don't have the skills. If you can't strike a ball like that, you can't strike a ball like that.
Yeah, Shane Dowling has to come up in conversation when we talk about beautiful ball strikers. Even just the range of goals he can score, and of course his final ever goal for Limerick in that game against Kilkenny where he batted it in from the 14 against Owen Murphy. I mean, that was majesty. But like a couple of the Kilkenny guys came up over different generations. DJ Carey, you even mentioned Cha Fitzpatrick, and then Henry Shefflin, of course, as well. And the question we had about Shefflin is, like he's 8 out of 10 with so many of the different facets of the game. And like the ball is going to go over the bar, but is it necessarily like as beautiful or as gorgeous a striking as other players?
It's not that gorgeous that they're going to have to put him under arrest, as Pat Munster did say. But I think it's like with Shefflin, there are better ball strikers, I would say, than him. There are definitely better ball strikers than him. His consistency was unbelievably high, as you say, over nearly every skill of the game. He was higher up probably consistently than anybody else. But whether he was, I would say DJ Carey was a more graceful ball striker than Henry Shefflin, being honest with you. DJ seemed to kind of cut across the ball kind of sometimes as well. As I mentioned, that point in 2002 kind of springs to mind as well. And just the various other things, the various little kind of strikes that he had. Shefflin never looked as graceful as maybe DJ, or maybe even I'd say TJ Reid looks pretty graceful now too. He's of the modern day team, he's an absolutely beautiful ball striker. Strikes it clear and true. If you look at any shots or any frees that TJ takes, would probably rarely go any more than 15 metres over the crossbar. They seem to it hits a line maybe 10 or 15 metres over the crossbar and just stays consistently at that line.
Then we were talking about Owen Kelly, and of course he's a great striker of a ball. But Paul Kelly came up, his brother, and the 2005 exhibition he gave against Cork when he was wing back, and I think he scored, was it something like 8 or 9 points throughout the course of the game. Now he might have been out midfield as well, but a tour de force. Like two lads from Mullinahone that can strike a ball and make it talk to you.
Yeah, I don't know what's in the water down in Mullinahone when you put Johnny Lahey into the equation there as well. It's they're fairly blessed down there with ball strikers. It's funny. Owen Kelly would have been the more skillful of the two, without a doubt, I would say. But as regards like pure ball striking, like Paul Kelly could kill you from like 100, 110 yards. And like when he was able to open the shoulders on that side at all, he was absolutely beautiful to watch. And as much as I hate to admit it, when you go down through the current Tipperary team now, there's a fair whack of really good ball strikers there. Like Jason Ford, again, he'd be there, but probably not up at the really, really high end. Ronan Matter as a defender, probably not going to have too many defenders on this list. We probably won't have many at all, but he strikes the ball beautifully as a defender. Like he can put the ball, like what looks like he's barely even a flick of the wrist, and the ball goes 100 yards over the bar. As well as that, he's a defender that I noticed last year in particular that they were trying, under Sheedy, they were trying to get the ball to him to set up attacks because he was that good. Like he's one of their best ball players basically. Then you go down to the rest of the team, like we talked about, like Bubbles in the kind of more skillful hurler and like the best wrist. Like he can do all sorts of things left and right. Absolutely beautiful to watch. Noel McGrath would be another one as well. Like we were watching Noel McGrath playing with Lockmore a couple of weeks ago, and every time he gets the ball, there's a purpose to it, and he's able to put it into areas and creatively do things with striking that other lads just aren't able to do. Like remember the ball over the top for Callan last year in the All-Ireland quarter-final against Laois, absolutely beautiful. yeah, like those would be the lads that would probably really stand out with tip.
You mentioned like Ronan Maher there, and the fact that he was back in fullback, and as you were talking there and talking about his distribution, part of me was thinking, geez, you don't want to lose his distribution from the half back line because he's so good, and by having him in the full back line, you'd be thinking you'd nearly lose that, but he could probably hit the ball 20 yards further than most players. So if he's 20 yards further back the field, he can still potentially, when driving out from the full back line and getting out to 35, 40 yards out, he can potentially deliver it to the exact same place that a lad coming out towards the 65 could deliver it.
Yeah, like I actually, like, he's one of those lads when you go to a match and I just think, how did he do that? Like, and like he's bursting out from full back and putting over 2 points against Wexford in the All-Ireland semi-final last year. Conor McDonald got a couple of scores off him, but he got 2 back off him. And you're just thinking, and the line cut is the same. It really looks effortless. Like, I could put 150% into a strike 100 times and I would not end up with one strike as good as Ronan Maher's. It's just that effortless, and that's kind of what it is. And there'll be a few other lads there. Like, when you talk about pure ball striking, Anthony Nash would definitely have to come into the conversation. I know you love talking about the 2013 finals because they were exhibitions of striking like you might never see again. We're not going to probably see them again because the rule has been changed on penalties in 21s, but when he strikes a ball, he can literally make it talk.
Yeah, and like I definitely want people to get their comments in, let us know what's the best exhibition of ball striking or the single best moment of ball striking you've ever seen. And one moment that made me go, wow, was watching Anthony Nash hit a penalty, and it was the first time he'd done it, or that I'd seen it in real life for Cork anyway. He'd possibly done it for Kanturk before that. But it was a penalty against Wexford in Thurles in a qualifier, and he just nearly lifted the net off the rigging. And as he hit it, I was like that. You know, I'm there as a journalist in a professional capacity going like that, wow, as he hit it. Like, it was absolutely unbelievable. So I put him up at the very, very top end of this, because when he hits the ball, it just stays going. But interesting that the following year, Patrick Horgan started taking 21-yard frees, and that Anthony Nash didn't continue to come up and take them. I mean, obviously there was the situation against Waterford in 2014 then when Stephen O'Keefe started charging down his penalties, and Waterford found a way to kind of stop him. But like, would you still be bringing him up from the back? Let's say Cork had a free from 25 yards out, there's a minute to go, there are 2 points down, or last puck of the game. Would you have him or Patrick Horgan, who's also a beautiful striker, taking that free?
Yeah, no, I'd have Nash coming up because I think he has power, placement, and the precision of it all as well. I think he's the total article nearly when it comes to that type of thing. I suppose maybe the reason why is just because if it's stopped and the ball comes down the other end of the field, whereas with a penalty it would usually, like with Nash, the penalty was dead, as in it was over. Or it was under. Usually it was a dead ball and the ball wouldn't still be in play, but because he's a bit further out now, maybe they think it's more likely to be saved. But I'd probably still be bringing him up. That's not to say that Patrick Horgan isn't an unbelievable ball striker. I just think Patrick Horgan is more of a risky kind of a striker than maybe Nash. Nash has the power, I think he has the distance. I think Horgan maybe probably doesn't have. He wouldn't have the same range as Nash. I would think anyway. I think he'd have better wrists, but I don't think he'd be as good as an actual pure ball striker as Nash would. Nash can do things that like you'd only dream of, really. That, as you say, there's things happen in games, and even puck outs and distances that he's able to put ball into certain areas, and you're just thinking that it's jaw dropping stuff, really.
Yeah, I'd be interested to get Cork people's comments on that, because I don't know if everyone would agree with you on that. Waterford, Austin Gleeson, it's like there's no denying the fact that the man can do anything with a sliotar if you put it into his hand.
Yeah, I was down in Walsh Park last Sunday watching Mount Sion against Passage. They were beaten, but there was a nice breeze with them in the second half, and he put over a ball from about 30 yards out, and he didn't even put 80% exertion into it. I'd say that's the sort of level of striking he had. That was off his right. He got a ball about 100 yards out and just bang left like that. It was beautiful. I had another 20 or 30 yards on it. He scored a point off his hurl as well, having sold it about 70 yards and taken a 1-2 in the middle of it. Beautiful ball striker as well. I think you'd have to talk about Stephen O'Keefe in there as well, the goalie. Probably a bit more mechanical maybe, and maybe a bit more mechanical looking than Nash would say, or even maybe Owen Murphy from a goalkeeper's point of view. But still, like, it's a bit more kind of robotic, shall we say, than maybe Nash or the likes of Owen Murphy for a goalie, but still a beautiful ball striker. Someone else in Munster I'd really like to talk about is Shane Conway. Watched him a couple of times in the Fitzgibbon Cup, and watched him a couple of times with Kerry, and it's mad. I remember the Fitzgibbon Cup final this year, they played Carlow, and it was swirling conditions up in DCU, and once he hit it, it just never deviated away from the path. You know, some free takers might hit it and they might float it, and it might just go like that and it starts tailing away. Once it hit that line in the middle, it just stayed. If he hit the ball that was going 5 yards wide at the start, it was still 5 yards wide. If he hit the ball and it was going in the middle of the post, which it did every time, it stayed in the middle of the post. An absolutely beautiful ball striker. And for a small man as well, it just shows you that you don't need to be like big 6'4" and have a load of power behind you. If you're a good ball striker, it doesn't really matter what size you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Then in Clare, we thought long and hard about this, and people in Clare think we're almost coming down hard on them all the time just to kind of wind them up, but we're not. Ball strikers here, I mean, Tony Kelly definitely comes to mind in this, in terms of, like, the man can put up 6 or 7 points, no problem in a game, and his striking generally very, very solid. But in some ways we were thinking Colm Galvin, like, he gets that ball on his own sort of D or inside his own half. He's a very, very good striker of the ball, and he generally sets up play very well.
Yeah, Colm Galvin would kind of remind me of a kind of a David Burke even years ago as well with Galway, and obviously still now as well. Like, he rarely gives the ball away. He could be given an 80 or 90 yard pass, and it's going to go exactly where he wants to, left or right as well, which maybe is something that you couldn't say about Kelly. Left or right, standing or on the run, Galvin can hurt you from anywhere basically. Like, if he picks up a ball, just say, you know, Donald Toohey stops the ball and Colm Galvin picks it up 10 yards from the goal, you're immediately thinking, all right, Clare in a score, they're going to get a scoring chance out of this. Just such as how good his ball striking is. He can pick out someone 30 yards away, he can pick out someone 100 yards away. And, like, how many times have we seen him putting over points from, you know, anywhere from his 65 upwards, realistically. I think I probably edged Colm Galvin if we're talking about best pure ball striker, I'd probably give the edge Colm Galvin in that one.
Yeah, and, like, it's interesting that the likes of Clare here, Wexford, Dublin, we struggle to actually name too many serious ball strikers, and maybe that's kind of the difference when it gets to the far end of the season and you're thinking, can they win an All-Ireland title? Maybe this is the reason that Clare don't get that close that often, that they've only been back to Croke Park in 2018 since winning the All-Ireland in 2013, which we've talked about many times. But, like, Dublin at the moment, not too many standing out. Wexford have lads who can put the ball over the bar, but beautiful ball strikers, it's not as if you could name plenty of them.
No, and it's funny, like, Lee Chin started taking the frees last year, and there were a couple of kind of hiccups with them, and O'Connor MacDonald had taken them, Paul Morris had taken them as well. That's probably a sign of maybe they're not having, you know, been blessed with unbelievable ball strikers. Whereas like in Galway,
Tip have about 6 or 7 lads who could potentially take them.
Yeah, same. Like with Galway as well. You know, Canning's going to be hitting frees. If he's not hitting them, you know that Cotton Mannion could hit them, or you know that Conor Cooney could hit them. Maybe not so much in Wexford. Like Wexford, the one that stood out in Wexford was their goalkeeper. And I suppose when you look at it, like Mark Fanning was the difference in the Leinster final. He came up and scored that penalty, and I suppose that just shows you that when Davy needed a ball striker, he obviously thought he was his best ball striker, his most consistent ball striker, and he brought him up to score the penalty, and he duly obliged.
But goalkeepers are a running theme here. Like, we've named Anthony Nash, Mark Fanning, we're going to talk about Owen Murphy, Enda Rowland, Owen Cahill, who plays outfield for Borough but plays in goals for Offaly. So does any position on the field focus on their ball striking as much as goalkeepers? I'd say not, because sometimes when outfielders are doing certain drills which involve athleticism and what have you, and goalkeepers have to do that too, but like they're practicing their puck outs, they're practicing their touch, they're practicing different things, which generally tends to lend itself to ball striking.
Yeah, and the day of the goalkeeper, you know, it's been a long puck contest, is long gone. It's gone more away from distance and far more emphasis on, you know, placement and where they're going to be able to place their puck outs, what they're going to be able to do with the ball. So of all the positions on the field, you're probably thinking your free taker your attacking free taker and your goalkeeper are going to be the two, and that's probably a common theme here when you go down through all the teams. Like Clare, that's why you're saying Clare, the free taker isn't on this list. You know, we don't, like Peter Duggan took the frees in 18 or whatever, but they don't have. That's why maybe you're not guaranteed as many scores. Maybe that's why Dublin aren't guaranteed as many scores as well. That's probably why Wexford maybe aren't guaranteed as many scores from place balls as well. They don't have that maybe pure ball striker that you're going to say, yeah, he's going to be up probably over 95% of the time. And it does hurt teams when you get to the real kind of, when championships are there to be won, it can hurt teams if you're just dropping off or you're missing that point or two here and there as a result of that.
Yeah, it's killed Dublin a few times. It did in the 2019 Leinster clash with Kilkenny down in Nolan Park, even the 2013 All-Ireland semi-final against Cork when they were in a good position that day, and plenty of other days in between, but they're just a couple that stood out. Well, you've mentioned Galway there. It would be remiss not to harken back to the days of Gerard Farrer when we're talking about great ball strikers, because by God, that man could put it straight into your gob from 100 yards. And also, I saw him playing for Castlegar last weekend, and it was funny. I'm not sure who was doing co-commentary, but it was also someone from Castlegar. And we had just watched Gerard Farrer put a ball over from the 65 and sort of leaning back away from goals. Lovely, lovely strike. And despite the fact that everyone else was struggling to score on the field, the commentator goes, I think they should put him back centre back. And I was pulling my hair out thinking, you've just watched him put the ball over the bar. No one else is able to do it here. And it was probably tricky conditions and all that. What are you on about there? But the 2005 All-Star, he has to be in the mix.
He's a beautiful ball striker. Played against him a couple of times in club games, and you're just thinking, like, he's one of those lads. You know that really good ball striker where, like, what you need to do is just stop them getting the ball. Because once they get the ball, they're going to do something outrageous with it. So you just need to try and spoil them. Once they get the ball, you're kind of goosed. You're in a bit of trouble. Like a Farrer would definitely come into that category, and as would a couple of the Galway lads now. Probably 3 or 4 of them now. Like I've seen Joe Canning do things with a ball like that you could only dream of doing. I remember playing a Fitzgibbon group game against LIT. It was a crunch match. I think we had to win to go through, and there was a penalty given away anyway. And Canning had actually pulled up on his hamstring, and Port Dublin were playing an All-Ireland club semi-final against Lockmore in 08, about 10 days later, and he scored the penalty and was been taken off. But as he was been taken off, the ball kind of went out over the sideline, and Davy got him to take the sideline, and he put the sideline cut over the bar and then went off. And that's just what you're dealing with. Like, just you're doing incredible things really, and being able to do things with a ball that no one else could do. Like some of the scores Canning has put up, like his ability to even hit over the shoulder from 90 yards and things like that. Well, other players can't do that.
This is the thing, like, because it doesn't matter which way he's standing, whether he's off balance, on balance, he's actually got a brilliant strike of the ball anyway. That 2015 goal against Kilkenny where he's kind of, the ball comes in over his head and he twists around, catches it, he's kind of off balance and still managed to hit the ball cleanly. The 2012 goal against Kilkenny in the All-Ireland final when James Regan hands it to him and he sort of solos through and off the left hand side, and it's just a beautiful crack between the slitter and the hurley as it arrows into the net. I mean, there's so many goals that he's scored over the years where it sounds lovely coming off the stick. And even as much as I hate to say it, the semi-final against Tipperary in 2017 when he knocks that ball over from distance, and you know the photograph with the smile and all that as he's watching it going over, it's a lovely strike of the ball.
It's a beautiful strike of the ball, yeah. And like in fairness, Galway are blessed with a couple of them. Like Carl Mannion is one of those lads now again where I talk about, like, if he gets the ball, you're in trouble, and he has the athleticism as well now where he can just glide through a tackle as well, put the ball over from 80 or 90 yards. Like he scored 7 points I think against Kilkenny last year, 7 points from play I think, and he can do that. Yeah, he's like, when he got an All-Star in 2015, I think he got 4 or 5 against Kilkenny in the All-Ireland final or in the Leinster final that year. The day when they played Kilkenny in the replayed Leinster final in 18 down in Thurles, he got a bag of scores that day as well. Like, he just beautiful. Like, real poetry in motion, kind of either left or right. And I mentioned David Burke already. Like when he was that kind of deep lying midfielder, even 10 years ago, and even playing under 21, he was the one that fed Canning. It was a twin tower duo, but it wasn't like two lads standing the full forward line together. He was the one that always fed Canning and fed him great ball in. And he's a lovely striker going forward, very, very pure striker as well. You see often in big games in particular, where he ends up with 3 or 4. Was he man of the match in the 17 final as well? I think he got 4 points when they played him in kind of a more advanced role. A beautiful ball striker as well. Just in some of the other counties there, the likes of like Ender Rowland, lovely ball striker, the Laois goalie. We've seen him score some crazy points for St. Abbey Leaks, St. Lazarians Abbey Leaks, isn't that his club in Laois? He scored some savage points. Chad Dwyer would be another one as well. Chad Dwyer is one of these crazy ones where it looks like he's sitting back almost striking the ball, but he can put it over from 100 yards. It looks like he's in a crowd of bodies and he's still able to put it over from maybe 100 yards. In Offaly then as well, I've seen Owen Cal at the closest to quarters at club level. And like we're constantly just kind of like I just look at him and like, geez, if I had 10% of his talent, I just thinking like what you could do. Like it's just unbelievable what he can do with the ball. Again, one of these lads that rarely miss, if a chance presents itself, rarely misses it, and his ball striking is just so pure. Don't think Keelan Kiley's ball striking is as pure as that. But for sheer distance, he's the Puck Fada champion the last 2 years, and his brother Cahill was second last year. The distance that he can put balls over the bar from, the Kilcormac Kalati player, and plays Offaly obviously as well, he'd hurt you from his own 45 easily. But yeah, we're fairly spoiled for choice.
We sure are, and now it's decision time. Who are you going to go with? It's tough to just pick one off the top of your head, isn't it? Because there's so much to kind of figure out here.
Yeah, it is tough. To be honest, for a player that was touted, from the age of 15, and to see what he was doing, like it was his ball striking that was setting him apart even at that age as a teenager, and winning 2 minor All-Irelands before graduating to the senior setup. Like I'm still amazed by Joe Cannon's ball striking. I think he's absolutely phenomenal. I'd probably be leaning towards him, to be honest with you. Just what he's done, I've seen him probably for the last maybe 15, 16 years, and what he's done consistently over that time has been absolutely phenomenal. As you said, that experience against LIT, that score he put up for LIT in the Fitzgibbon final when they lost to WIT, that point against Tipperary, like, who else would you have wanted the ball to fall to? That was a dream scenario in a way.
Well, put it this way, I was from Tipperary, and he was the last lad I wanted to.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, but like if Joe wants it, Joe can continue hurling for a long time, because he's always going to be able to hurt teams at any level, just with that ball striking ability. So it will be Joe Canning for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think Patrick Horgan probably deserves a bit more hopping here than we've given him. TJ Reid, we haven't really talked about that much, because it almost goes without saying. Of course, he's in this category, so we don't need to talk about him so much. But like, obviously, his ball striking is out of this world, and he's killed teams over the years. So definitely, he's worth considering. Ronan Maher, I can't ignore him, because it's just the way the ball takes off when he strikes it. And like you said, it seems a simple little flick of the wrist, and off it goes. Colin Mannion definitely has to be mentioned, but yeah, like yourself, and Anthony Nash, of course, as I waxed lyrical about early on. But I'm going to go with Joe Canning as well, because just when he hits the ball, it stays hit. The ball will talk when he hits it, so it has to be him.
Like the more than Nash as well. Like if you just said that they changed the penalty rule and it was 3 on the line and you couldn't move inside the 21, I'd fancy Canning like 90% of the time to be scoring goals from there. They're just rockets once he connects with the ball. I remember I was on a panel with Brendan Cummins last year, and he just said, he was talking about like, who did you fear most when you were playing, and you were thinking, he said, when you're playing Galway, like Joe Canning, like his goal for the day is literally to get in on you and put one past you, and he has the ability to do that. Like if he's anywhere 25 yards out, he has the ability to rattle a ball into the top corner, and as well as that, if he's out the field, he's the ability to really, really hurt you from out the pitch. So yeah, as pure ball strikers go for me, and seems for you as well, they don't get any better than Joe Canning.
Yeah, absolutely. He's getting our number one vote here. If you disagree, agree, please let us know. And don't forget, we were brought to you by 65hurls.com. Head there and get your sticks for the year.